Try this test. You are standing at a city gate at dawn with a cart of grain and a permit seal. The market is 1 day away. If you miss it, your profit turns to spoilage. What matters more, the strength of your oxen or the condition of the road? Because ancient empires did not expand on maps. They expanded on surfaces, packed earth, stone, gravel, timber bridges, and the routines that kept them passable. A road is not a line. It is a contract between the center and the edge. Move goods, move soldiers, move taxes, move news. Today we follow the ancient world's highways, especially the roads that built empires, not as romantic routes, but as economic systems. Who paid for them? Who controlled them? And why so many civilizations rose when roads worked, then fractured when roads failed. Start with the basic problem. In the ancient world, distance is expensive. Every kilometer eats time, food, and security. Carrying goods by land multiplies cost fast. A jar of oil, a sack of grain, a block of stone, each becomes heavier when you must guard it, feed animals, and pay tolls. So the central tension is simple. States needed movement to survive, but movement could bankrupt them. An empire that cannot move grain cannot feed cities. An empire that cannot move troops cannot hold borders. An empire that cannot move tax revenue cannot pay anyone to do either. Now picture a road crew at work. They are not building a monument. They are lowering transaction costs. A hard surface reduces wagon breakage. Drainage reduces mud. Mile markers reduce uncertainty. Way stations reduce hunger. The road turns chaos into schedule. But here's the twist. Roads are not primarily for merchants. They are for administrators. A reliable road makes authority mobile. It lets officials inspect granaries, enforce measures, audit local elites, and respond to revolt before it spreads. That is why the first great imperial road stories are also stories of mail. Consider the Achaemenid, Persian, royal road. Couriers ride in stages. Fresh horses wait at stations. Messages move faster than armies. This is not luxury. It is command and control. When orders arrive quickly, governors hesitate to improvise. When news reaches the king quickly, punishment becomes credible. Now, the part most people miss. Speed is an economic weapon. If you can communicate faster than your rivals, you can coordinate taxes, prices, and supply. You can shift grain from surplus districts to deficit districts. You can direct caravans around danger. You can keep credit networks alive because information about risk travels. The road also makes taxation legible. Imagine harvest time in a provincial valley. Farmers bring grain to a local storehouse. A scribe measures it, records it, seals it. But the grain's value is not captured until it can be moved. A road is the final step in taxation. Without transport, a tax is a pile that rots. So states invest. They compel labor, hire specialists, and requisition materials. Road building is paid for with coercion and surplus. In return, the state gets reach. Rome is the most famous example. Roman roads were engineered with layers, camber, and drainage. They were built to move legions, yes, but they also moved trade, migrants, and courts. Along a major road, you can see an economy forming. Inns, stables, repair shops, toll points, markets at intersections. A road creates property value. Land near the road becomes more useful, more taxable, more contested. Villages become towns, towns become hubs. Hubs attract merchants who bring coin, and coin attracts more merchants. Roads create self-reinforcing wealth. But here is where everything quietly starts to break. Roads also create chokepoints. Bridges, passes, ferries, and gates are places where violence and revenue concentrate. Whoever controls a bridge can tax movement. Whoever controls a mountain pass can starve an army. Roads are arteries, and chokepoints are valves. That is why empires fortify them. You see watchtowers on ridges. You see garrisons at crossings. You see patrols on exposed stretches. Security is not an afterthought. It is a line item. When security costs rise, trade margins shrink. When margins shrink, traffic declines. When traffic declines, local economies weaken. Roads can die by gradual thinning. Now step into a roadside station at dusk. The courtyard smells of sweat, straw, and stew. Pack animals are watered, wheels are repaired. A clerk checks a travel token and points you to a corner of floor space. This station looks ordinary, but it is an institutional achievement. Road infrastructure has 3 price tags. First is construction: quarrying stone, cutting timber, digging ditches, laying surfaces. Second is maintenance: floods wash out culverts, ruts form, bridges rot, markers fall. Third is enforcement: patrols, watch posts, and courts to punish theft. Empires that forget any one of the 3 get a road that works in theory and fails in practice. How do they pay? Often through a labor tax. Communities are required to contribute days of work, animals, carts, or materials. That spreads cost widely, but it also spreads resentment. The road is never just a benefit, it is an obligation. Some states add fees: a toll at a bridge, a gate tax at a city entrance, a charge for using an official ferry. These are not minor. They shape trade geography. If tolls rise, merchants detour to secondary routes, and towns on the main line decay. If tolls are too low, the state cannot pay for repairs, and the road decays anyway. The most successful systems find a balance: predictable costs that traders can price into contracts. Now watch a merchant's arithmetic. He calculates not only distance, but risk. A safe road lowers the risk premium, letting him carry bulky goods like grain or pottery. An unsafe road forces him into high-value cargo, spices, dyes, silver, because only high margins can absorb losses. Road security quietly determines what ordinary people can buy. Here is where law enters daily life. A contract is useful only if you can enforce it. On strong roads, officials can travel to collect debts, seize collateral, or summon witnesses. On weak roads, the creditor must rely on kin pressure or private muscle. That changes who gets credit, and it concentrates finance in the hands of those with protection. Compare road systems across civilizations. Roman administration built prioritized routes for official travel, supplied by stations that could requisition animals and food. The Inca built mountain highways for foot travel, supported by storehouses and relay runners. Different surfaces, same function: connect surplus to need and center to frontier. But roads can also make empires brittle. Faster communication lets the center demand more, sooner. A single bridge failure, a blocked pass, or an unpaid garrison can delay response long enough for confidence to crack. And once confidence breaks, the road becomes a rumor. Bandits are back. The tax doubled. The station is empty. Merchants listen, and movement thins. At these stations, information is traded as intensely as goods. Travelers share which governor is fair, which stretch is unsafe, which port is closed by storms. Prices adjust before the cart even arrives. Roads do not just carry commerce, they carry expectations and punish those who ignore them. Now shift to the social world of the road. Most ancient travelers did not ride like officials. They walked. They joined small groups for safety. They carried bundles, tools, or a few coins. A road is not only a trade network, it is a migration network. Soldiers return home with wages and foreign habits. Craftsmen follow building projects. Pilgrims move toward temples and festivals. Enslaved people are moved by force, reshaping towns and farms. Every movement changes labor markets. When a road makes seasonal travel easier, workers can chase higher wages. That threatens local elites who rely on trapped labor. So elites push back with restrictions, debt, and patronage. Mobility is power, and roads distribute power unevenly. Look at a roadside market at midday. A potter sells cups, a farmer sells fodder, a money changer tests coins, a woman sells bread to strangers. The market exists because the road produces strangers. Strangers create demand, but they also create risk. So trust becomes central. This is where institutions step in. States standardize weights and measures. They enforce contract law. They issue travel passes. They punish banditry. They publicize penalties. All of it reduces the cost of trusting someone you have never met. But here's the twist again. Trust is never free. It is purchased with administration. A scribe's salary, a soldier's ration, a judge's time. When states cannot afford these costs, the road becomes less predictable and the market shrinks back into local barter and family networks. Compare two worlds. In a strong road world, merchants plan routes, they extend credit, they invest in wagons and animals, they specialize. In a weak road world, merchants hoard, travel less, and demand higher prices to compensate for risk. The same land produces different prosperity depending on the road's reliability. Now widen the lens beyond Rome. In China, imperial roads and canal-adjacent routes connected grain regions to capitals. When the state could move grain, it could stabilize prices and prevent famine politics. When transport failed, food stayed local, prices diverged, and legitimacy cracked. The center's promise, order, depends on movement. In Mesopotamia, roads and canals competed as transport systems, but both required maintenance. When irrigation silted up or roads became unsafe, city-states became vulnerable to each other and to nomadic pressure. Connectivity was always a negotiated achievement. The road also shapes war in a deeper way than battlefield. Tactics. Armies are hungry machines. They require grain, fodder, weapons, and replacements. A good road turns a distant frontier into a supplied frontier. A bad road turns a frontier into a gamble. Now the part most people miss, the best defense is often logistics. An empire with inferior soldiers can still win if it can feed its troops longer, replace losses faster, and move information quicker. Roads are strategy made permanent. Yet roads also spread shocks. Disease follows traffic. Inflation follows army payments in coin. News of revolt inspires distant imitators. Roads integrate economies, and integrated economies fail together. So why did ancient people keep building them? Because the alternative is fragmentation. Without roads, power becomes local. Local power collects local taxes and keeps them. Local militias replace imperial armies. Trade becomes episodic. Cities shrink. Roads, then, are a bet on scale. They say, the benefits of a large system will exceed the costs of maintaining it. For centuries, that bet can pay off spectacularly. But it can also overextend. Roads tempt empires to reach farther than they can afford to police. Each new province adds distance. Distance adds cost. Cost demands higher taxes. Higher taxes provoke evasion. Evasion forces harsher enforcement. And enforcement itself requires, again, roads. This feedback loop explains why some empires feel stable right up to the moment they aren't. The road network looks impressive, but the budget behind it is tight. Return to the city gate at dawn. The guard checks your seal, not because he loves rules, but because rules protect revenue. The road ahead is not neutral. It is maintained, policed, taxed, and contested. It is a political object you can walk on. So here is a simple framework you can use for any ancient civilization. Call it surface, stations, and sanctions. Surface. What is the road made of, and how does it handle weather, weight, and repair? Stations. Where are the waypoints, inns, granaries, stables, depots, and who funds them? Sanctions. Who enforces safety and contracts, garrisons, courts, patrols? And what happens when enforcement weakens? Answer those three, and you can predict whether trade expands, whether taxes arrive, and whether armies hold. And you can ask a final question, the one that hides inside every empire. When the roads stop working, who pays first? The merchant, the soldier, or the city?